Okay, so I'm really sorry to interrupt all those interesting conversations, but it's time to say a few words to formally open the exhibition. And I decided to take on that task myself, simply because the thought of standing here listening to somebody potentially saying nice things about my art seemed a bit too daunting. And because this isn't my natural habitat, I try and keep it brief. First of all, I would just like to thank my family and friends, especially my husband Ian, for supporting me in the crazy business of being an artist. My son and daughter, who both made the effort to come back from Scotland, and my daughter Baby's here tonight. Thanks also to my sister and husband who have come here from the UK, and all those lovely friends whose faces I can see staring back at me. I'm also going to just jump to thanking Pettit Super Value, and especially Aidan Doyle, who's the manager in the Southern Cross Road, because, as many of you will know, there are so many expenses involved in the run-up to an exhibition. It was really great to be able to strike a significant run off the list. I'm also enormously grateful to everyone here at Signal Arts Centre, the whole team, and it's always scary to name names in case you miss anybody out, but particularly Donal, who's the person responsible for measuring and hanging absolutely everything you see on the walls. He was so patient with me, and together with his great eye, Shane's great eye, and an odd intervention from me, I kind of had the feeling that everything found its right place, which was really magical. Thanks also to Dawn, who runs the gallery, Santa, Heather, and in the run-up to the whole thing, Lorraine. I think it's also worth underlining how important the Signal Arts Centre is as a centre for art and creativity. We're very lucky to have it in our midst here in Bray and the surrounding areas. I'm actually from Greystones. I did a ceramic class here about 7 years ago with James, and at the time I was knee-deep in academia and crying out to do something with my hands, and it just made a huge difference at the time. I've actually got a vessel that I made around that time. I'm not a ceramicist, but the green one is one I made shortly after, and I was able to come and hire the kiln here, and it's something I hope to get back to in the future. I also did a tapestry weaving class here, hence the name. I did that with Anna, who's here tonight somewhere. Here. Hi Anna. So that gave me all the skills I needed to go home and experiment. And COVID followed quickly after, so it was something that kept me occupied all during that COVID period, which was fantastic. I'd also like to mention Biffy, which is an institution just up the road, Bray Institute of, can't remember now, Higher Education. Actually, Jim, a friend of mine, has just graduated from there. So back in 2012, I did a 2-year course, and it was a game changer in so many ways. I can't even pinpoint them. This year, because of Paula's graduating, I went to see the end of year exhibition, and across all of their courses, whether it's woodworking or fashion design, fine art, whatever it was, the creativity on show was nothing short of exciting. I always come out feeling invigorated. So again, we're very lucky to have it. Then personally, I was really lucky to be able to take the beginnings of what I discovered at Biffy, which was some kind of weird fascination with interwoven lines. Don't ask me why. And I spent a period of study and research in art history. And I was concentrating on particular artists, but along the way had the opportunity to delve into all sorts of interesting things, including finding out a lot about the history and the symbolism attached to weaving. And to be fair, my family used to tease me a lot, in a loving way of course, about my enthusiasm for so many seemingly unrelated things. And in fact, the pieces I wrote was a bit of a kitchen sink project, or so it seemed. But to me, they were all connected, and I suppose I was creating a kind of a weave through writing on that particular occasion. So I just want to say, having done the tapestry weaving course here and then continued, there's something really powerful that happens when you actually join separate materials and create something that has its own integrity. It's a moment when you sense that a unity has been achieved, and that something new has been created, and that experience keeps drawing you back time and time again. If you think of it, one of the most significant Rubicons that humans crossed was, in fact, to join or twist two very pliable pieces of plant together and begin to make cordage. It made possible joining together flintstones with wooden halves, things like that. Weaving followed on, and it was used in architecture and all sorts of other applications. And I think the legacy of that can be seen in the fact that almost everything we're all wearing tonight is woven at an infinitesimal level. So it's a very ancient technology that at its essence hasn't been superseded. So that very briefly then takes me to the drawings I made from the exhibition, which come with this fascination about the inner workings of the weaves, and they're called tapestries because that tends to be the type of weaving you find on walls. So I would produce an underdrawing first. I don't know if anyone knows necessarily how they're made. There's a kind of painstaking process involved in creating an underdrawing, usually done with fine liner pen. And obviously it's quite a meditative process, and I hope some of that comes through. Then there's an overlaying of colour, pastels and charcoal or whatever happens after that. And in some of them I've used a broken line, which is kind of a reference to the two types of threads that are used in weaving, the warp and the weft. And when one passes under and over the other, the warp thread disappears. So I'm kind of making reference to that. And then also there's a long-standing connection between computing and weaving. They're two technologies that have a lot in common in terms of the underlying structure. I'd be glad to know I'm on the last page. So this whole spatial drawing began when I was spending a lot of time on the South Beach in Greystones, again during COVID. And being pretty weave obsessed as I was at the time, I had this idea that the waves coming into the shore in whatever direction they were hitting, I noticed that they always ran back out in straight lines. Mm-hmm. And that kind of got me thinking about the warp and weft and their different contrasting qualities. And I started doing the black charcoal drawings down at the end. That's progressed in all the ways you can see, and probably will continue to, though I'm taking a break from lines. I realise there are thousands and thousands of lines that I've drawn. So I've just started doing a bit of painting. There's also figure drawings, and they're the beginnings of a long-term project that draws on the art history studies I had. I had a small award from the Arts Council, and that allowed me to do some investigation. There was a transition from one type of sculpture into the classical sculpture that we all know, and again I'm interested in the contrasting styles. So I wrap it up there. I really appreciate you all giving me your ear. It's fantastic to have you all here tonight, and I hereby declare the exhibition open.